And now, the First Alert Storm Team, live from the 13 Now digital desk. This is Tropic Topics, sponsored by Peden Heating and Air Conditioning and Mariana Toyota.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm News 13 meteorologist Kristen Kennedy here with a new update on our Tropic Topics. We'll be bringing you more updates throughout the day on the very latest, now coming from Hurricane Ian. We just got the 10 a.m. advisory, or 10 a.m. Central Time advisory, and I do want to give you a little bit more information about the hurricane in and of itself, its latest projected path, and what kind of impacts we'll be experiencing here in the Panhandle. Starting off first with visible satellite imagery and infrared satellite imagery, actually, which kind of gives us a better understanding of where the core of the structure is and how intense it is, which is where you can see those dark reds and blacks showing up on the imagery here. Does indicate a lot of convection, aka the storm just continuing to grow and strengthen. It did make landfall as a Category 3. That's a major hurricane early this morning at 3:30 a.m. Central Time over the western tip of Cuba. At that point, it had winds of 125 miles per hour and wind gusts of 155 miles per hour. Right now, it is actually emerging from Cuba, moving into the Gulf of Mexico, and Cuba really didn't do a whole lot to weaken it, but its winds at this time are 115 miles per hour, and it is shifting to the north at around 10 miles per hour. So as we continue to track it through that location, we will be watching it move through the Gulf of Mexico for the day today, starting to shift towards the northeast, and likely see it strengthening further over the next 24 to 48 hours. It is forecasted this time to become a Category 4 hurricane by, I'd say, Tuesday. Well, it's actually already Tuesday. By Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning, there is going to be some upper level wind shear that will help to deteriorate it just the slightest bit before it is forecast to make landfall. However, still a major hurricane, now expected to start to move towards the west coast of Florida, anywhere between Bradenton, Sarasota, Venice, as well as Port Charlotte is where the current forecast track takes it in for a landfall. Notice the cone there is still a little bit more widespread over the next from Thursday through Friday timestamps, meaning that it could wobble and wiggle. In fact, from this morning, it looked like it would have a direct impact, earlier this morning, over Tampa, and now it's shifted down towards the south. So we'll be watching those trends very, very closely, but there is much higher confidence at this time that just south of Tampa down to Fort Myers looks to be where there will be a major hurricane, that being Hurricane Ian, making landfall late Wednesday into early Thursday morning. Even as it pushes inland just to the east there of Tampa, still expected to be a Category 1 hurricane by Thursday at 7 a.m. Further weakening is expected, however, to the northeast as it traverses land by 7 p.m. on Thursday, and also then further by Friday. Now, there has been a slight shift here in this forecast, more so towards the east, which is why we are expecting it to move through central parts of Florida and to the east closer to Jacksonville by the end of the work week, and also heading into the weekend. I do also want to stress that anyone watching who is not from the Panhandle, or maybe you're watching from other parts of Florida, don't just focus on the category or what kind of tropical storm. It's all about the impacts, which are going to be life-threatening down near anywhere from Tampa to Port Charlotte, even close to Fort Myers, as we're expecting very significant storm surge of 5 to 10 feet. Rainfall totals that could be around 15 to 20 inches, and that's if the storm doesn't stall. The American model is trying to have it meander and stall around the west coast of Florida for about 24 hours. If that's the case, then those forecasted rainfall totals could double. We're talking about what could be a historic flooding event for this area as we progress through the next couple of days. So definitely still a lot to watch. The models are still fine-tuning, but anyone in that area who has not evacuated should listen to those authorities who are calling for evacuations and taking those actions now, or if they are planning to hunker down, you really only have the next 24 hours to do so before the real impacts from Ian start to impact the west coast of Florida. Looking off further towards the north over the weekend, If you have interests in the coastal Carolinas, maybe even coastal Georgia, central Georgia, the Carolinas, or even up through the Tennessee River Valley region, we're still expecting heavy rainfall to impact you, as well as a threat for tornadoes that will be on the eastern half of the storm. So tropical rain bands will be spinning in and could create isolated spin up tornadoes. So there will be a severe weather threat also through the weekend for locations to the north of Florida, so mainly Georgia and what looks to be mostly the Carolinas. The forecast cone is broad over Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and even further up as far north as West Virginia. That is because the center of the storm may shift and could go towards the east or west. So anyone within the cone certainly needs to be prepared for wet weather over the weekend, some gusty winds, and possibly even a threat for tornadoes to be seen. Notice much of the panhandle no longer in the cone. So that means we are not as concerned about major impacts here in Northwest Florida. We will still see some minor impacts, but certainly nothing that's going to be as threatening as other locations to our east, like the majority of the peninsula of Florida, or even further off towards the north. So getting a little bit more into that forecast and some updates that we have been seeing. I believe the spaghetti models plot is next. I just want to show off why the forecast cone has changed, and it's because you're going to see a pretty good consensus on where the models are pinpointing some of that data coming in over the past 24 hours. We've seen these spaghetti plots go from far out to now all taking just about the same pattern. And as I mentioned earlier, really around Tampa, down south to Port Charlotte is where we are specifically looking for a landfalling hurricane. At this time, more so around Bradenton, Sarasota, and Venice is the potential main impacts for that Category 3 landfall expected Wednesday night through Thursday morning. And I've also put out just a couple of words there, the Euro and GFS, that's the European model and the American model, and where they are trying to pinpoint the official landfall. So Sarasota to Venice certainly looks to be more of a concern at this time for the official landfalling locations. Regardless, though, anywhere from Tampa to Port Charlotte is going to still see those devastating impacts. So everyone in that area certainly needs to take their last minute preparations or get ready to pack up and leave. Get these graphics to advance here, and I'll show you what we're expecting here in the Panhandle, as again, we are not looking at significant rainfall totals or even wind speeds to occur here in Northwest Florida. Let's see if there you go. All right, potential wind speeds. Obviously, with the hurricane in and of itself, the strongest winds will be close to the eye. So as we progress the graphics and continue to see the threat for the strongest winds, it looks like they will start to impact coastal Florida, the west coast, especially anywhere from they're already seeing some rain bands right now, but I would more so pinpoint it towards tomorrow morning. The storm will be just offshore there, and they will likely be picking up anywhere between 50 to 70 mile per hour winds along the coastline. That will continue up until about Thursday afternoon, possibly into Friday morning, with winds anywhere from 70 to 100 miles per hour at times. Again, mainly on the closest side to the eye, if there is still an eye. If it becomes a tropical storm, then certainly we'll be talking about tropical storm force, which is around 73 miles per hour or less. If you focus solely on the Panhandle, we're not going to see a whole lot. What we will see is around 15 to 25 mile per hour sustained winds, starting more so tomorrow and lasting through Friday. For majority of our central counties, further towards the west, over towards Okaloosa and Walton County, may not deal with up to 25 mile per hour winds. It may be a little bit less than that, but sustained winds for the most part in the areas shaded by green here will be around 25 miles per hour, possibly getting up to 30. I'm going to cap it definitely at 30, no more than 30 mile per hour winds expected anywhere in that green region. Towards the east, we're looking at around 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts anywhere in both of these regions. We could see gusts of 40. So again, gusts occur every now and then, not constant. Sustained winds means you'll see 15 to 25 constantly or 20 to 30 constantly, depending on your location. And those coastal areas from the Forgotten Coast, even to coastal Bay County as well as Gulf County, may also be dealing with winds of around 20 to 30 miles per hour as well, just because you'll be closer to the water and the winds over the water, of course, will have less friction, less to work with, so they'll be a little bit stronger. So again, that is Wednesday through Friday. No significant impacts are expected from these winds. We have been relatively dry for the past week and a half, possibly even like 2 weeks at this point. So the ground is not super saturated. If we had very wet weather and then winds around 20 to 30 miles per hour and gusts up to 40, then we'd really be talking about more of a threat for trees to come down or limbs to come down. I do not expect that to be widespread by any means. Not saying it won't happen. Someone may experience that in their location, but it's going to be very much so isolated. So power outages locally do not look like an issue for Northwest Florida and even some parts of the Big Bend. Now, the more east you get from Tallahassee towards Perry, they'll be impacted with some heavier and greater threats for some power outages, as the wind will be a little bit stronger to our east. But for Northwest Florida, that does not look to be a concern. What will be a concern for other locations is going to be significant rainfall totals, especially in around Tampa, where that landfall is expected. 15 to 20 inches in the forecast right now. If the storm stalls, those numbers could double. So we could be talking about catastrophic flooding. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully Ian continues to move and doesn't stall. And regardless, 15 to 20 inches of rain is still a lot. So flooding will definitely be a concern for the Central Peninsula. Notice though, with the path more so towards the north and east, moving towards Jacksonville and then up the east coast over through, say, parts of the Carolinas, that's where the heavy rainfall is going to be. We're going to be on the west side of the storm, so we're going to have drier air working in our favor to help erode some of the western edge of the storm, which means we have a very sharp and steep gradient when it comes to that rainfall. This projected map here showing most of us getting zero inches of rain and maybe a little bit more to the east. Very tricky, very hard on this. It kind of just depends on where the rain bands go. If they do stay confined to the storm that is to the east of us, then we're not going to really see any rain at all. Certainly 1 inch or less, more so close to a 0% chance of rain and accumulated rainfall, I should say, in our central and eastern counties over to the Apalachicola River. Now, there are a couple models that are still trying to put out maybe 1, maybe 2 inches of rain close to Tallahassee. That would include far eastern Franklin County. I think that's still kind of generous just based off of the latest trends with the storm tracking to the east. But nonetheless, this is not a rainfall event for us. We're going to see no more than 2 inches of rain, and that would occur on Thursday and Friday. So we're not talking really about flash flooding. As the system at that point will be tracking to our north, we shouldn't really have many rain bands that sit over the same area for a long period of time. That'll be a threat further towards the north and east of us. So again, not really much of an impact here coming from rainfall and barely any of an impact coming from wind as well. So overall, this is a very minimal threat to the Panhandle. Thankfully, we are not forecasting too many impacts or significant impacts. Just to wind it up here, we have 20 to 30 mile per hour sustained winds possible for our coastal locations of Bay, Gulf, Franklin County, and also the east end. So that would also include parts of Liberty County, maybe Gulf County, as well as Franklin. That's where the stronger winds will be, with gusts anywhere up to 40 miles per hour. Rainfall totals, most certainly for most of our central and western counties, 0 to 1 inch. So really low end chance there. Further towards the east could get up to 2 inches, but again, that is more so on the generous side. Based off the latest forecast trends, we'll likely shave those numbers down over the next 12 hours or so. Storm surge is not going to be a whole lot of an issue. Again, we're on the west side, so think about the rotation of a hurricane. We're generally going to have winds out of the north, northeast, or straight from the north, and as it pushes more so towards the north, the winds will then come from the northwest. So generally a northerly component. So a lot of the time the water is going to be pushing away from the coastline, but there is still potential that as the storm moves away, aka, I'm trying to just think with the map here in my head, if it moves towards Georgia and the Carolinas, We'll eventually start to see more of a west and could see a southwesterly wind by the weekend, which is why there may be just the smallest amount of surge of around 1 to 3 feet. That is specifically for Franklin County and the Forgotten Coastline. That does not include Bay County, Gulf County, anywhere further towards the west. Storm surge here is really almost non-existent, just other than when we may see those winds shift could lead to 1 to 3 feet in those locations. Again, tornado threat, not an impact for us. We are on the west side. Tornadoes usually occur on the east side with those rain bands spinning in from south to north. We will not be seeing that here in our area, so there is a non-existent tornado chance at this time. But one thing I do want to point out is while our weather is going to be pretty decent, we're going to get a little bit of cloud cover rolling in, I'd say from Wednesday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, some peaks of sunshine. We definitely have it nice compared to the rest of Florida. It's going to be dangerous for beaching and boating regardless. I would urge you to stay out of and off of the water starting tomorrow. I know Bay County's already flying single red flags today as winds are picking up, especially over the water. Again, winds over the water will be more significant than over land. So beaching and boating conditions will not be good Wednesday through Friday. That could linger into Saturday. Today, the waves are around 3 to 5 feet in the out in the Gulf, and the bays are very choppy, and we don't even have one of the stronger days of wind forecast here. So just be extra cautious, pay attention to the flag warning system and other issues that the local authorities will be discussing as well. But really, this is a pretty low impact event. It's not like we're not getting anything. We are getting an increase in winds. We may get a little bit of rainfall, but that's about it. Thankfully, the path here has shifted towards the east, so this is a less of a concern for the Florida Panhandle and more so a concern for the good majority of the peninsula of Florida. Now, FutureCast here is kind of showing you what our in-house model is projecting at this time. Don't really focus on where the center of the storm is because it is a little bit of off. We're still waiting on another update for our in-house model to come in, which will likely shift it a bit further to the east, just like the National Hurricane Center has. But I do want to point out that by Wednesday night into Thursday morning, the storm itself will become a little bit lopsided. What's going to be happening on the west edge there and even wrapping around down south is a little bit of drier air that should work to deteriorate the system, which is why we're also forecasting it to rapidly de-intensify as after it makes landfall. For example, by Thursday evening, majority of the rainfall and the rain bands will be on the northern half of the storm and the eastern half, but even the eastern half at that point should be eroding as well. So the rainfall threat for locations in central and southern Florida will start to lessen by Thursday evening and that into Friday evening. So hopefully they can get some relief and start to clean up after the storm continues to push towards the north. But north central Florida, the coastal Carolinas, Georgia will be dealing with heavy rainfall stretching in from Thursday night through the weekend as well. While you'll see most of the panhandle, this model is not showing a whole lot of rainfall trying to come in. Again, it's really just dependent on how compact the storm will be. If those rain bands do spread out and the dry air takes longer to wrap around, then we'll be dealing with a little bit better chance for some scattered showers and storms. But for the most part, it looks like our central and western counties should remain dry. And I mean around Bay County to the west is going to be mostly dry. Now, Bay County to the east, anywhere from Washington to Holmes, Jackson, Liberty, Calhoun, Gulf, Franklin County, there's potential you may see some rain bands roll in Thursday through Saturday, which is why I have included that rain chance here on the 7-day forecast. But it's not going to be widespread. It'll be very scattered in activity, and more so Friday in through Saturday, that rain chance will shift to our inland locations versus that of the coastline, as we may see just a little bit of wraparound moisture around the hurricane as it shifts towards the north versus that of the rain bands trying to compact themselves. So that is the full wrap up of what's expected here in the Panhandle. This is not a panic situation. You don't really need to make preparations anymore. This is not something that's really going to impact us other than increase our wind speeds. Again, at most 30 miles per hour sustained, 40 mile per hour gusts through Friday. Breezy still expected on Saturday, but nothing more than around 20 miles per hour at that time and calming by Sunday. And then rainfall totals, we're talking about almost no rain to at most our east end getting 1 to 2 inches. So I'm going to open up for some questions here and just give me a moment to read through our Facebook here and just look for any questions. Panama City Beach, as I mentioned, it's just about really not much. I know it's the rainfall that we're gonna get nothing or might get a little bit of something, but certainly nothing that will cause a threat for flooding. Nothing that's going to be too immense and heavy. So that is the main concern. I don't want to do too much of like pinpointing forecasts because I feel like I've covered a lot of it here and we have a lot on our website as well. It's all very general from the inland to the coast. The only difference is going to be that coastal locations from Bay to Gulf County and Franklin County will be dealing with a little bit stronger winds, up to 30 miles per hour, versus the inland spots will be around 20 to 25 with gusts up to 40. And rainfall totals, the only difference there between who's seeing what in our Northwest Florida locations will be the further east you are of the Apalachicola River, you have a chance to see 1 to 2 inches of rain. Further west of the Apalachicola River, 1/2 inch to 0 inches of rainfall. Spencer, do you have something?
At this point, how likely is the track to change at all, or is it pretty set?
The path is pretty set on going east. I do not see this shifting at all to the west. That's the past 24-hour trends, as we've said, that as we go forward by day 2 and 3 out, that we will really have a better idea. There is barely any models showing any type of trend to the west. So we do not need to worry about this here in the Panhandle. I said a couple days ago, hopefully the best case scenario is this prep was just you being prepared for in the future, next chance of anything happening. Like hopefully you all have your hurricane preparedness kits ready and a plan and you're ready to activate it in the future if needed. But this does not look like it is going to shift by any means to the west. If it did, we would slightly adjust those numbers. But again, it's moving towards the east. The trend over the past 24 to 36 hours has been further to the east, to the east, to the east almost every time. So we are pretty confident that that's going to continue to be the case.
Meteorologist Ross Whitley is asking about rip currents and wave heights.
Oh, Ross is tuning in. I got the boss man on. Okay, rip currents definitely going to be a big concern. We're already seeing some areas picking up in wave height today, around 2 feet for our coastal locations, but we could see some of those wave heights. And I'm talking specifically like 2 feet for the beaches out in the Gulf today, 3 to 5. We could see 4 to 8 over the next couple of days. I wouldn't be surprised if it does get a little bit choppier because the winds will be the strongest over the Gulf of Mexico compared to that of our shoreline, even further inland. So over the Gulf, just based off of what I was seeing this morning, we could see anywhere from around 30 to 40 knots and possibly even higher wind speeds dependent on again how spread out the storm itself is, or if it's more compact. If it's more compact, then we won't have too much wind to worry about, but if it does start to spread out and we do see more of those rain bands rolling in, that will certainly be more of an issue. So rip current risk is going to be elevated. Today it is moderate. I do believe it'll be a higher risk tomorrow, and likely seeing some rip current statements coming out by Thursday and Friday, again with our stronger wind speeds and more of a pull in the Gulf. So with the wind out of the north, as I mentioned earlier, it's usually pushing the water kind of away from the shoreline, which is going to create a deeper pull for anyone trying to get into the water, which means there will be less time for you to recover and try to get back to shore. So I do think we will see more red flags flying and possibly even double red flags at area beaches over the more. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, then certainly by Thursday, Friday, and that could also linger into Saturday just for everyone's safety purposes. I think by Sunday we'll certainly have calmer conditions and we should start to see those beach and boating forecasts start to become a little bit more plausible and enjoyable for our area as well.
And where can people find future updates and closures and forecasts and stuff like that?
Awesome. Well, so if you guys, maybe you're watching from your app, maybe you're watching from our website, maybe you're watching from Facebook, we are fully loaded with updates multiple times a day. I believe Ross will also do another Tropic Topics this afternoon around 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So wherever you're watching right now, tune back in around 3 o'clock for more updates. We do have our Facebook page as well as our awesome Storm Track 13 app. If you haven't downloaded it just yet, it is a great resource. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a meteorologist. I actually trust it myself, which is hard to do with all the content and resources that there are out there. You get our personalized forecast. So the 7-day you see on your TV on your screen right here is the same 7-day that we plug in ourselves through the app. You can also live stream from the app. So forever live broadcasting, you pull out your app on your phone or your computer, wherever it may be, your iPad, and there's a live stream button. You can watch from wherever you are. They have live radar, of course, and overlays and updates from the National Hurricane Center. You can also overlay that onto our radar. So basically anything you could ever need, especially getting in touch and getting your latest local forecast from News 13, the Storm Track 13 app, great resource. We also are posting lots of updates on mypanhandle.com. That is our website where we are going to be sharing just about every update that comes in from the National Hurricane Center, detailing any type of forecast change to the Panhandle. Will be listed on mypanhandle.com as well. And we'll also be sharing more information about the peninsula of Florida and the impacts expected further down towards our south and east. I believe we also are sharing updates on our website about any closures in our area. I do believe we've had a couple of university and or college closings ongoing. If you need that information, it is also on our website. Great place to find all of it. And of course, Facebook, social media, News 13, meteorologist Kristen Kennedy. Ross has been really on top of the game as well. We are just trying to share any information to help you, not only locally, but if you have friends or family down south and or in the path of the storm, we're putting that information out there so you can help your friends and family make a better decision for their livelihood as well. I think that's going to do it here for our Tropic Topics. Stay posted and stay tuned for more updates, but thankfully, again, this is shifting towards the east. This will not be a major issue for Northwest Florida. We're going to be dealing with some increase in winds and perhaps the slightest bit of rainfall, but that's about it. In regards to the weather aspect, of course, rip currents will be an issue from Wednesday through possibly Saturday. Boating conditions not the best either. We'll be sharing more updates, of course, on our website and on our newscast as well with everything you need. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you have a great day.
Thank you for watching Tropic Topics, sponsored by Peden Heating and Air Conditioning and Marietta Toyota. Be sure to download the Storm Track 13 app today to stay up to date with all of the latest weather information. For more local news, weather, sports, and more, visit mypanhandle.com.